turned 60 last month. 60 years old. 6 decades. More than half a century of living, loving, losing, and learning. More than half a century of making mistakes, trying to fix them, making new ones, and slowly, painfully slowly, figuring out what actually matters. They had a party for me. My daughters insisted. Claire and Emma, both in their 30s now, with families of their own. They rented a hall, invited friends and family, made speeches about what a great father I've been. Everyone laughed and drank and toasted to 60 more years. And I stood there smiling and gracious, thinking, if only they knew. If only they understood how many times I got it wrong before I started getting it right. How many relationships I destroyed. How many lessons I learned too late. How much time I wasted being the wrong kind of man. My name is Walter. I'm 60 years old. And this is what 60 years has taught me about love, loss, and what it actually means to be a man. Not the lessons I learned at 20, or 30, or even 40, but the hard truths I've accumulated over 6 decades of living. The things I wish someone had told me when I was young and certain I knew everything. The things I'm finally starting to understand. Lesson 1. Love doesn't look like the movies. I was 23 when I met my first wife, Catherine. She was beautiful. I mean stunning. Long blonde hair, blue eyes. The kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. And for some reason, I still don't fully understand, she chose me, Walter. Average-looking guy working construction. No college degree. No prospects beyond eventually maybe running my own crew someday. Nothing special. But she saw something in me. Or thought she did. And I fell completely, stupidly, hopelessly in love. I thought love was supposed to be like it is in the movies. Sweeping, romantic, 2 people finding each other, and everything just clicking into place. No work required, no effort needed. Just this magical connection that solves all problems. That's what the movies taught me. That's what the songs on the radio promised. That's what I believed love was supposed to be. So when things got hard, when we fought about money, or disagreed about where to live, or struggled with the practical realities of building a life together, I thought something was wrong. Thought we weren't meant to be. Thought real love shouldn't require this much effort. I was 23 years old and didn't understand the first thing about love. Catherine and I were married for 6 years, had 2 daughters, built a life that looked good on paper, but felt wrong in practice. We divorced when I was 29. I told everyone it was mutual, that we'd grown apart, that we wanted different things. But the truth, I gave up. I thought love was supposed to be easy, and when it wasn't, I assumed we'd failed. I assumed the relationship was broken beyond repair. I didn't understand yet that all love requires work. That the movie version, where 2 people meet and everything is perfect forever, doesn't exist. That real love is choosing someone every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I learned that lesson too late to save my first marriage. But I learned it. Love doesn't look like the movies. It looks like effort, compromise, forgiveness, showing up even when you'd rather walk away. It took me decades to understand that. And by the time I did, Catherine had remarried and moved on. Lesson 2. Being strong means knowing when to be vulnerable. My father taught me to be strong, not in so many words, but through example. Through the way he handled everything with stoic silence. Through never showing emotion, never admitting weakness, never crying, never complaining, never letting anyone see him struggle. That's what men do, I learned. We're strong. We handle things. We don't burden others with our feelings. We suffer in silence and pretend everything's fine. I carried that lesson into every relationship I've ever had, every friendship, every romance, every interaction where I could have opened up, but chose instead to maintain the facade of strength. My second wife, Linda, used to beg me to talk to her. "What are you feeling, Walter? What's going on inside your head?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. I can see you're upset. Just talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about. I'm handling it." Handling it. That's what I always said, because that's what men do. We handle things. We don't need help. We don't need to process emotions with our partners. We just handle it. Linda and I were married for 11 years. She left me when I was 42. Not because I was a bad husband, not because I didn't love her, but because, as she said in the letter she left, living with you is like living with a wall. I can't reach you, can't know you, can't help you, and I'm tired of trying. A wall. That's what she called me. And she was right. I'd spent 20 years building walls, protecting myself, maintaining strength, never letting anyone, even the woman I loved, see the vulnerable parts of me, the scared parts, the uncertain parts, the parts that needed support and connection and help. I thought that made me strong. Turned out it just made me alone. Here's what I know now. Strength isn't refusing to feel. Strength is having the courage to feel and express those feelings anyway. Strength isn't handling everything alone. Strength is knowing when to ask for help. Strength isn't maintaining a stoic facade. Strength is being vulnerable enough to let people see who you actually are, not just who you pretend to be. My father was wrong. Or maybe he wasn't wrong for his time. But times changed, and I didn't change with them. I kept being the kind of man my father taught me to be, and I lost a good woman because of it. These days, I cry. When things hurt, I cry. When I'm scared or sad or overwhelmed, I let myself feel it. I talk about it. I call my daughters and tell them I'm struggling. I see a therapist and process things instead of bottling them up. And you know what? I'm stronger now than I ever was when I was pretending to be strong. Because real strength is authenticity. Real strength is vulnerability. Real strength is having the courage to be human instead of superhuman. I wish I'd learned that at 23 instead of 43. Maybe I'd still be married to Linda. Maybe my daughters would have grown up with a father who taught them that feelings matter, that being real is more important than being tough. But I didn't learn it until I'd already lost her. That's the way these lessons work, I guess. You don't learn them when they'd be useful. You learn them in the aftermath, when all you can do is apply them going forward. Lesson 3. Loyalty to the wrong things destroys you. I've always been loyal. That's something I'm proud of. Something my father taught me that I still believe matters. You're loyal to your family, to your friends, to your employer, to your commitments. That's what good men do. They show up, they keep their word, they honor their obligations. But here's what took me 40 years to understand. Loyalty to the wrong things destroys you just as surely as disloyalty to the right things. I worked for the same construction company for 28 years. Started as a laborer, worked my way up to foreman, then crew chief, then operations manager. I was loyal, gave them everything, worked 60-hour weeks, weekends, holidays, missed birthdays and school plays and family dinners, all for the company, all because I was loyal. And when the economy crashed in 2008, they laid me off without hesitation. 28 years of loyalty, and I got a 2-week severance package and a handshake. It's nothing personal, Walter. Just business. Just business. As if those 28 years of my life, of missed moments with my family, of sacrificed health and relationships and time I could never get back, were just business. I'd been loyal to the wrong thing. I'd prioritized my employer over my family, my job over my life, the company's success over my own well-being. And in the end, the company didn't care, couldn't care, because companies aren't people. They don't feel loyalty. They don't reward sacrifice beyond what's contractually obligated. I gave them the best years of my life, and they discarded me the moment I became inconvenient. Meanwhile, my daughters grew up with an absent father. My marriages failed because I was never home. My health deteriorated from stress and overwork, all because I was loyal to something that would never love me back. I see it everywhere now. Men my age who gave everything to their jobs, who sacrificed their families and health and happiness for companies that replaced them the moment it made financial sense. Men who were loyal to corporations while being disloyal to the people who actually loved them. Men who learned too late that loyalty should flow toward people, not institutions, toward relationships, not organizations, toward what actually matters, not what pays the most or looks most impressive. These days, I'm loyal to my daughters, to my grandchildren, to the few friends who stuck around after I finally learned how to be a real friend, to my own health and well-being. I'm loyal to things that can love me back, to relationships that are reciprocal, to commitments that honor both parties, not just exploit one. And I've learned to recognize when loyalty becomes stupidity, when commitment becomes servitude, when staying becomes more harmful than leaving. That's the lesson. Loyalty matters, but only when it's directed at the right things, at people, not positions, at relationships, not revenue, at love, not obligation. I wish I'd learned that at 30 instead of 56. Maybe I'd have spent those 26 years differently. Maybe I'd have more than regrets and a 2-week severance package to show for them. But you learn when you learn. And sometimes the price of education is everything you thought mattered. Lesson 4. Sacrifice isn't virtue if it makes you bitter. I sacrificed a lot over the years. For my wives, for my daughters, for my job, for everyone except myself. I thought that made me noble, virtuous, a good man. Because that's what good men do, right? They sacrifice. They put others first. They give until there's nothing left to give. My mother used to say, "Walter is so selfless, always thinking of others." And I believed that was praise. Believed that sacrifice was inherently good. That the more you gave up for others, the better a person you were. But here's the truth I learned too late. Sacrifice without reciprocity breeds resentment, and resentment poisons everything it touches. I gave up my dreams of starting my own business, to stay at the company that offered stability. Gave up hobbies I loved because they took time away from work and family. Gave up friendships because maintaining them felt selfish when I had so many other obligations. I sacrificed my health, my happiness, my sense of self, all for other people, all to be the good man everyone expected me to be. And I became bitter, resentful, angry at the world and everyone in it for taking so much and never giving back. My third relationship, I didn't marry her, learned my lesson after 2 divorces, ended because of this. Her name was Patricia. We were together for 5 years. She wanted to go back to school. I supported her, paid her tuition, covered all the bills while she studied, sacrificed my savings and my plans for early retirement. "Just until I graduate," she said. "Then I'll start earning and we'll rebuild the savings together." But after she graduated, she left, found a job in another state, told me long-distance relationships didn't work for her, thanked me for my support and moved on. And I was left with empty savings, deferred dreams, and the bitter realization that I'd been used. Here's what I know now. Sacrifice is only virtue when it's chosen freely and given without expectation of return. When it comes from abundance, not depletion. When it doesn't destroy the giver in service of the receiver. If your sacrifice makes you bitter, it's not sacrifice. It's self-destruction disguised as nobility. If your giving creates resentment, stop giving. because poisoned gifts help no one. Not you, not the people receiving them. I should have learned to say no. Should have learned that taking care of myself isn't selfish. Should have learned that I can't pour from an empty cup, and draining myself completely doesn't help anyone. But I learned what I'd been taught. Good men sacrifice. Good men put others first. Good men give until there's nothing left. And I became an empty, bitter shell of a man who'd given everything and had nothing to show for it except resentment and regret. These days, I give differently. I give from fullness, not emptiness. I give what I can afford to give without destroying myself. I give with boundaries and conditions, and the understanding that saying no is sometimes the most loving thing I can do. And I'm learning, slowly, to forgive myself for all the years I didn't know how to do that. Lesson 5. The right time is always now. I've lived my entire life waiting for the right time. The right time to start my own business. The right time to pursue my hobbies. The right time to travel. The right time to write the book I've always wanted to write. The right time to live the life I actually wanted, instead of the life I thought I was supposed to want. Always waiting, always preparing, always telling myself, soon, when circumstances are better, when I have more money, when work slows down, when the kids are older, when I retire, soon, always soon, never now. I'm 60 years old, and I've waited 60 years for the right time to do most of the things I actually wanted to do. And you know what I've learned? The right time never comes. It doesn't exist. There will always be reasons to wait. Always obstacles. Always something preventing you from starting. The only time that exists is now. And either you do it now, or you don't do it at all. My father wanted to travel, wanted to see Europe, wanted to visit the places his parents came from, wanted to experience the world beyond our small town. When I retire, he'd say, when I have time, when I can really enjoy it. He died at 63, 6 months after retiring. Heart attack. Sudden. No warning. He never saw Europe. Never visited those places. Never did the thing he'd been dreaming about for decades, because he waited for the right time, and the right time never came. I watched that happen. Watched my father die with his dreams unfulfilled, and I told myself I wouldn't make the same mistake. Then I spent the next 40 years making exactly the same mistake. Waiting, planning, preparing. Always preparing, but never actually doing. I wanted to write. Always wanted to write. Had stories and ideas and things I wanted to say. But I told myself I'd do it later, when I had more time, when I'd lived more life and had more wisdom to share. I'm 60 now. Finally writing, finally saying the things I wanted to say 40 years ago. And the only reason I'm doing it now is because I realized, if not now, when? If I keep waiting, I'll end up like my father, dead, with dreams unrealized, gone with all these lessons unshared. Another man who spent his whole life preparing to live, instead of actually living. The right time is always now. Not someday, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have more money, or more energy, or more certainty. Now, today, this moment, because this moment is all you have, all you're guaranteed. Tomorrow might not come, and if it does, it'll have its own obstacles, its own reasons to wait. If you're waiting for permission to live the life you want, consider this your permission. If you're waiting for a sign, this is it. If you're waiting for the perfect moment, you're going to wait forever, because perfect moments don't exist. Only this moment, and what you choose to do with it. Lesson 6. Emotional intelligence matters more than any other kind. I'm a smart guy, always have been. Good with numbers, good at solving practical problems, good at figuring out how things work and how to fix them. That's the kind of intelligence that gets rewarded. That gets promoted. That gets praised. That makes you successful in traditional ways. But emotional intelligence, understanding feelings, my own and other people's, recognizing patterns in relationships, knowing how to communicate effectively, managing conflict, processing grief and disappointment and fear, I had none of that. Zero. Negative numbers. And it cost me everything that actually mattered. It cost me my marriages, because I couldn't understand what my wives needed emotionally. Couldn't recognize when they were pulling away. Couldn't communicate my own feelings effectively. It cost me relationships with my daughters, because I didn't know how to be emotionally present. Didn't know how to talk about feelings. Didn't know how to show up for them in ways that mattered beyond providing financially. It cost me friendships because I couldn't be vulnerable, couldn't ask for help, couldn't maintain connections that required emotional depth. All because I thought intelligence meant being smart with facts and figures. Not realizing that emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and navigate the inner lives of myself and others, was the only intelligence that actually mattered for the things that make life worth living. I started learning emotional intelligence at 54, after my second divorce, after losing my job, after realizing that despite being smart in traditional ways, I'd failed at everything that mattered. I went to therapy, read books, took courses, learned vocabulary for feelings I've been having my whole life but never had words for. Learned that anger is often just grief or fear in disguise. Learned that emotional regulation is a skill that can be developed. Learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. Learned that asking for what you need isn't selfish. Learned slowly and painfully to understand the emotional landscape of myself and others, and it changed everything. Changed how I relate to my daughters, changed how I approach new relationships, changed how I show up in the world. But I can't help thinking, what if I'd learned this at 20 instead of 54? What would my life look like? Would I still be married to Catherine or Linda? Would I have deeper relationships with my daughters? Would I have maintained the friendships I let atrophy because I didn't know how to be emotionally present? Maybe, maybe not. But I'd have had a chance. Instead of stumbling blindly through 6 decades, destroying relationships I valued because I didn't have the emotional tools to maintain them. These days, I teach this to my grandsons. When they come over, we don't just play games or work on projects. We talk about feelings. I ask them what they're feeling and help them find words for it. I show them that grown men can cry and be scared and ask for help. I'm trying to give them the emotional education I never got. Trying to spare them the decades of fumbling I went through. Trying to teach them that emotional intelligence is the most important kind. Intelligence without emotional awareness is just clever ignorance. And I spent 54 years being cleverly ignorant about the most important aspects of being human. I'm grateful I learned eventually, but I wish I'd learned sooner. Lesson 7. Male friendship is essential, not optional. I spent most of my life thinking I didn't need friends, that friendships were something women had, that men didn't need that kind of connection. Men had acquaintances, work buddies, guys they'd drink with occasionally. But deep, meaningful friendships, relationships where you shared feelings and supported each other emotionally, that was for women. I had exactly one friend who fit that description. Jack. We met in high school, stayed close for years. He was the only person I could really talk to, the only one who knew me beyond the facade. Jack died 7 years ago. Heart attack. He was 55. I went to the funeral. Saw dozens of people there. Men. All telling stories about how Jack had been there for them. How he'd supported them through divorces and job losses and personal struggles. How he'd been the kind of friend who showed up. And I realized I'd lost that. Had that kind of friendship and let it go because I thought I didn't need it. Thought I was above needing that kind of connection. I was wrong. I needed it desperately. Still do. Especially after my marriages ended and I found myself alone, realizing I'd built my entire life around romantic relationships and work, never bothering to maintain the friendships that might have sustained me when those other things fell apart. Male friendship isn't a luxury. It's not optional. It's essential to mental health and well-being and survival. Men need other men. Need relationships where we can be honest, where we can admit we're struggling, where we can process the hard stuff without having to maintain the strong facade. Women can't be our only emotional support. That's too much weight for a partner to carry. And when the relationship ends, and relationships do end, you need people who'll still be there, who know you, who care about you outside the context of romance. These days, I have 3 real friends. Men I talk to regularly. Men I'm honest with. Men who check on me and let me check on them. Men I can call at 2 in the morning if I'm struggling. It took work to build those friendships. It takes work to maintain them. I have to be vulnerable, have to initiate contact, have to show up even when it's uncomfortable. But it's worth it. Worth more than I can articulate. Because these friendships have saved me in ways I don't think I could have survived without them. I wish I'd understood this at 20. Wish I'd maintained the friendships I had instead of letting them drift. Wish I'd built a network of real connection instead of a collection of superficial acquaintances. But I know it now, and I'm teaching my grandsons, teaching them that male friendship is essential. That vulnerability with other men is strength, not weakness. That they need each other in ways our generation was never taught to acknowledge. Lesson 8. Health is wealth, and you don't know it until you lose it. I treated my body like a machine, expected it to run forever without maintenance. Ate poorly, slept little, never exercised, pushed through pain and exhaustion because real men don't complain. Real men just work harder. I was indestructible, I thought, young and strong and capable of anything. Then I turned 50, and my body started sending bills for decades of neglect. First, it was my back. Herniated discs from years of construction work and bad posture. Then my knees. Then high blood pressure. Then type 2 diabetes. Then the heart scare that put me in the hospital for 3 days and made me confront my mortality for the first time. Suddenly, I wasn't invincible. I was a broken-down machine that needed constant maintenance. Pills, physical therapy, diet restrictions, exercise requirements, all the things I'd ignored for 50 years, now demanding attention. And I realized I'd traded my health for everything else. For work, for success, for proving I was tough, for being the kind of man who doesn't need to take care of himself. And now I'd never get it back. Could manage the damage, but couldn't undo it. Couldn't reverse decades of neglect with a few months of better choices. Here's what I know now. Health is the only wealth that matters. Without it, everything else is meaningless. Money doesn't matter if you're too sick to enjoy it. Success doesn't matter if you're too broken to appreciate it. Achievements don't matter if you're not healthy enough to keep living. Your body isn't a machine. It's the only vessel you get for navigating this life. And if you destroy it through neglect, you don't get a new one. I see young men making the same mistakes I made. Working too much, sleeping too little, eating garbage, never exercising, ignoring warning signs because they're too tough to need help. And I want to grab them and say, stop. Take care of yourself now, before your body sends you a bill you can't afford to pay. But they won't listen, just like I didn't listen when older men tried to warn me. You don't understand until it's too late, until you're facing the consequences and wishing desperately you'd made different choices. These days, I walk every morning, eat vegetables, take my medications, go to my doctor appointments, do physical therapy, all the boring, unsexy work of maintaining the broken machine I inhabit. And I'm grateful I can still do those things. Grateful I got the heart scare as a warning instead of a final notice. Grateful I have time to repair some of the damage, even if I can't undo it all. But I wish I'd started 40 years earlier. Wish I'd treated my body with respect instead of contempt. Wish I'd understood that health is the foundation everything else is built on. Lesson 9. Regret is inevitable, but wallowing is optional. I have regrets. So many regrets. I regret my failed marriages, regret not being the father my daughters deserved, regret the friendships I let die, regret the dreams I deferred, regret the years I wasted working for a company that didn't value me, regret the health I destroyed, regret all the lessons I learned decades too late. I could list my regrets for hours, could write a book just cataloging my mistakes and missed opportunities and roads not taken. And for years, that's what I did. Wallowed in regret, let it consume me, let it define me. Became the man who'd failed at everything that mattered. But here's what I learned. Regret is inevitable. You're going to make mistakes, going to hurt people, going to waste time, going to fail. That's part of being human. Part of living long enough to look back and see clearly all the things you couldn't see when you were in the middle of them. But wallowing in regret, letting it poison the present, that's optional. That's a choice. You can acknowledge regret without being consumed by it, can learn from mistakes without being defined by them, can accept that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time, even if your best wasn't good enough. I'm 60 years old. I've made more mistakes than I can count, hurt people I loved, failed in ways I still struggle to accept. But I'm also here, still alive, still capable of learning and growing and being better, still capable of making amends where possible and living differently, going forward. I can't change the past, can't undo the damage, can't go back and be the man I should have been, but I can be better now, can apply the lessons, can show up differently for the people still in my life, can make my remaining years count in ways my earlier years didn't. Regret is a teacher if you let it be. It shows you what matters, what you value, what you wish you'd done differently. And if you're willing to learn from it, instead of drowning in it, it can make you better. That's the choice. Wallow or learn. Stay stuck or move forward. Let regret define you or let it refine you. I choose refinement. Choose growth. Choose to let my mistakes teach me instead of destroy me. It's not easy. Some days I still get pulled under. Still feel the weight of all those years I can't get back. Still wish desperately I could go back and do it differently. But most days, I can look at my regrets and say, that happened. I can't change it. But I can change what happens next. And that's enough. Has to be enough. Because it's all I've got. Lesson 10. It's never too late to become who you should have been. At 55, after my second divorce, after losing my job, after realizing I'd spent my entire life being the wrong kind of man, I almost gave up. Thought, this is it. This is who I am. Too late to change. Too old to become something different. Might as well just coast to the end. But something in me, some stubborn part I didn't even know existed, said no. Said, you have maybe 20 or 30 years left. Maybe more. You going to spend them being the same man who failed at everything? Or are you going to try being different? And I tried. Started therapy. Started reading. Started learning about emotional intelligence and vulnerability and all the things I should have learned decades earlier. Started being honest with my daughters. Started admitting my mistakes instead of defending them. Started asking them what they needed from me instead of assuming I knew. Started building real friendships. Started taking care of my health. Started pursuing the dreams I'd deferred. Started writing the book I'd always wanted to write. Started, slowly and painfully, becoming a different kind of man. Not the man my father taught me to be. Not the man society expected. But the man I should have been all along. The man my wives needed. The man my daughters deserved. The man I wished I'd been. And here's what I learned. It's never too late. Never too late to change. Never too late to grow. Never too late to become who you should have been. Yes, I wasted 55 years. Yes, I have regrets. Yes, I destroyed relationships that can't be repaired. Yes, I missed opportunities that won't come again. But I still have today, and tomorrow, and however many days I'm granted, and I can choose to spend them differently. I can choose to be vulnerable instead of stoic, connected instead of isolated, honest instead of defensive, present instead of absent. I can choose to be the grandfather my grandchildren deserve, even though I wasn't the father my daughters needed. I can choose to be better, today, now, in this moment. My daughters have noticed the change, comment on it, say things like, "Dad, you're so different now. I wish you'd been like this when we were kids." And part of me breaks every time they say that, because they're right. I should have been like this, should have learned these lessons when they were young enough to benefit from having a different kind of father. But I can't change the past, can only change now, can only be better going forward, and hope that's enough. And maybe it is. Maybe being better late is better than never being better at all. Maybe my grandchildren will benefit from the lessons I learned, too late for my children. Maybe breaking generational patterns counts, even when it happens late. I have to believe that. Have to believe that changing at 60 matters, that it's not too late. That the remaining years can be lived differently than the years I've already spent. Because if it's too late, then what's the point? If you can't change, can't grow, can't become better at 60, then why keep going? But you can change. I'm proof of that. 60 years of being one kind of man, and now I'm trying to be another. And it's working, slowly, imperfectly, but it's working. These are the lessons, the hard truths I've accumulated over 60 years of living, loving, losing, and slowly, so slowly learning. I wish I'd known them sooner. Wish someone had told me. Wish I'd been wise enough to listen if they had. But I know them now, and I'm trying to live them. Trying to be the man I should have been 40 years ago. Trying to make the remaining years count in ways the earlier years didn't. And I'm teaching my grandchildren, passing on these lessons. Hoping they'll learn at 20 what I didn't learn until 60. Hoping they'll be wiser, kinder, better. Hoping I can give them what I couldn't give my own children. A model of what healthy manhood actually looks like. That's what 60 years taught me. About love, about loss, about being a man. If you have stayed till the end, hit the subscribe button. God bless.